Hello and welcome back. We are working again on week 5, but this time we're looking at part 2. So this video is for an explanation of English article use and to talk about the writing system that we'll be focusing on, looking at introductions in particular. So to start with, I think we should probably talk about the word article. So article has a few meanings, but one of them would be a newspaper article, so something along these lines, or a journal article, what you can find perhaps in, this type of a book. In journal articles tend to be academic, but actually what we are focused on today and what you should be trying to teach your students about is articles which define nouns. So an article can be, a specific article would be the, or it can be the little word a, or if the noun starts with a vowel, A, E, I, O, U, then it would be un. So articles are a, un, or the, and they give us information about nouns. If you remember, if you watched part 1, we love counting in English. So nouns, maybe about 80% of nouns in English are countable nouns. So it's really, really important for you, especially as future teachers, to get in the practice of using these articles. It's also a really important feature to teach your future students because this is a very strong part of the English language. So the we use as a definite article. So we define what something is as a specific thing when we use the word the. For example, if you talk about your own school, you would say the school I go to is GNUE. So that you define, in particular, the one specific school that you go to is, and then you would give your school name. A or un are referred to as indefinite because it just means one of many. So for example, please take a chair would mean there are a number of chairs, just choose any one, doesn't matter. So I'm moving on now to slide 14, and you can see I've got 2 pictures here which I chose partially because they're cute, but I wanted to give you some examples, and possibly examples you can use in the future for your elementary school students, of these indefinite articles. So indefinite articles are when we talk about, one of many, so it doesn't really matter which one in particular. It's any one of a group. For example, my friend really wants a dog for Christmas. She loves dogs, so she doesn't care what kind of dog. She just wants one dog, anyone. So it doesn't matter the type, the breed of dog. So another example that I've given you here, I've got our little baby elephant. When I was at the zoo, I saw an elephant. So this means that there are a number of elephants in the world, and I saw one of those little elephants. I'm going to move on to slide 15. So in this case, I'd like you to practice, just so you start to get a handle on how to use it and when to use articles, indefinite articles in this case. So what I'd like you to do is take a look. So it can be anything in front of you, or if you have a bag, you can look in your bag, and what I'd like you to do is choose 3 items, 3 items that you like in particular. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to talk about them and remember to use the indirect article. So I'll give you some examples. Okay, so here I have a pair of sunglasses, I have a hair elastic, and I have a candle. Okay, so the idea here is that you're getting interested and focused on using the indefinite article to describe things, objects that are around you. So try your best to introduce 3 things out loud right now. And I suggest that you pause the video and do this. If you want to do more, it would actually be excellent. So pause the video and give at least 3 examples of things that are around you. I have a mon. Okay, I'm going to continue on to slide 16. So what I want to look at here is I'm going to start in the top left corner and ask you, what is it? So if you answered, it is, first of all, excellent, because you're using grammar. If you just use the word balloon, or balloon is actually not a sentence. So because, I ask my students every year, every semester, do you enjoy studying grammar? And 9 times out of 10, students do not like to study grammar, because grammar tends to be repetitive and boring. So the idea for this exercise is that you begin to get in the habit of using grammar when you speak. So for your future students, it's much easier for them to grasp the concepts of grammar, because your students will copy you. So if someone asks you, looking at the red balloon, what is this? And you answer balloon, actually, that's the most basic answer you could give, but what we want to do is help the students. So if you answer it is, and then we add our indefinite article, a, and then we add an adjective, red, and then we get balloon, wonderful. If you answered using all 5 of those words, that would be an excellent answer. So thinking about that, let's continue with this exercise. What about the second picture? What is it? Okay, now again, if you answered cat, this is again the most basic answer that you could give. It is true, but really what we want to be doing is we want to be encouraging students, once again, to be giving full sentences. So what's the full sentence answer? We start with it is, and then we add the indefinite article, a cat. Now, actually, this is a very young cat, so if you know the particular vocabulary word, again, this makes your answer even better. So if you answered, it is a kitten, wonderful. And if you answered, it is a cute white kitten, if you added some adjectives, excellent. So ideally, your answer would be, it is a small, blue-eyed, white kitten. If you've got the indefinite article in there, wonderful. That is exactly what we are looking for. And please remember to use indefinite articles period, actually, as much as possible. So the third picture, what is the third picture? Have a happy birthday. So I'm hoping that you're actually answering out loud, because the idea for this also is that you're participating, even though we are not in one-to-one classes, we can still work together in a participatory way. So the third picture, what I'm looking for as a perfect answer would be, it is a birthday card. Or it is a birthday invitation, perhaps, something along those lines. It's a colorful birthday card. The more that you add to your answer, the better the answer will be, the more details that you give. So I'm looking next at the fourth picture. So we can see there are 2 people on it. This is a movie poster. So you have a variety of answers that are possible. But the one that I was looking for is, it is an American Crime movie poster. If you answered that, wonderful, but I would guess that you maybe are not familiar with it. I wasn't when I first chose it. But remember that the article has to reflect whatever the word is beside it. So even if you have, for example, an umbrella, if you change to describe the umbrella and you say it is an orange umbrella, we have to focus on the orange. So we use If you choose a blue umbrella, then we would switch the A to a instead of un. What about the fifth picture, thinking about that? Now, again, you have your choice. If you choose to use adjectives to describe the egg, if you want to use it's a happy egg, then, or you can choose it's a cute egg, it's a hard-boiled egg. You can choose whatever you would like, but just remember to use the indefinite article and to match if it's a or un with the word that comes after it. In the last picture, this is a terrible example from TV. Do you know who Gordon Ramsay is? Well, if you do know him, you'll know he's a British chef, and he's very famous for having a terrible temper. He gets angry very, very easily, and he got very angry with this poor woman on his show. And what he did is he took 2 pieces of bread, put them beside her head, and said he made an idiot sandwich. So here we're looking for he has made an idiot sandwich. Horrible as it is still possible. I'm moving on now to slide 17. Now, this is a really important note, which I noticed from some of your homework that some of you already understand this. That is that the sound of the noun is important. So, for example, a noun that begins with a U, but the sound is U, it actually is a unicorn or a university, because the sound is a Y sound, yeah. So in the opposite case, if the H has no sound, for example, our, then we would say un, because the sound is a vowel sound that comes afterwards. So do be careful. Remember that it's important for you to think about these things before you say or write them. So what I'd like you to do next is I'm going to give you some time to try. So what I'd like you to do is after the explanation, pause your video and give this a go. So remember that the first sound of the adjective is important. So do we say a or un for broken egg? What about unusual problem or European country? And then remember that any member of a group, when we talk about just anyone, kanyang one, I am blank teacher, what's missing? And what about he is American? There are many, many Americans. He's just one of them. What about Seon? Seon, her religion is Buddhism, so she is Buddhist. And our answers are, for the beginning, we get a broken egg because the word that comes after the a is B. Starts with a B, broken. So it would be a broken egg. Unusual problem is a, so it has the U sound, which means that we would use the article unusual problem. European's a bit tricky. Did you catch it? Because it sounds like European. So we have that y sound, which means that we just use the indefinite article a. So a European country. For the members of groups, and this is definitely one you should always remember because this is your future job. I am a teacher. He is un-American. And why do we use un? Because it starts with an A. And Seon is a Buddhist. So moving on now, I'm on slide 19, and I want to now talk about the definite article. Now the definite article is a little bit difficult to teach, but we're going to try. So the questions that I'm posing here is whether we should use the or not. So we're going to go yes or no. What do you think? So in the first case, we use the when there is only one, when it is unique and it's familiar. We all know about that one thing. For example, the sun. There's only one sun. It is unique, so we say the sun. The world that we live in, the moon, there's only one, and the equator. So the equator is the line that goes around the middle of the earth. There's only one, so we use the because it's specific. So can you think of an example that would be in a classroom where there's only one thing in that classroom? So some examples that I can suggest would be the clock, or the computer, or the teacher, or can you think what do you write on when you're teaching? The whiteboard perhaps, or the blackboard perhaps. Depending on the classroom that you're in, you could have the screen or the projector. So there are lots of choices, but the important point that I'm trying to connect for you is that we must use this article. If we want to show that it's only one, it's unique and familiar, we all know about that one, for example, in that classroom, then we need to use the. Moving on to slide number 20, should we use it or not? So in this case, we're going to use the for situations. So for example, if we're in a classroom and you're going to go to upload a PowerPoint or something like that, then you say, I'm going to use the computer now. So in that classroom situation, there's only one computer. Textual is what we're working on today. So this is going to be part of your homework today. So the textual is, I saw a cat yesterday, one cat, but lots of cats are around. And then because I've spoken to you about a cat, you know that the next time I talk about it, when I use the cat, I'm going to be referring back to the cat that I first talked about. So I saw a cat yesterday, the cat was black, which means the cat I saw yesterday was black. Number 3 is cultural. So this is important, for example, in your area, okay? So if you say, I'm going to the bank, it means your usual bank, the bank that is nearby that you go to all the time. The 518 park is a must-see. So this is for parks that people know about and are important in that culture. Number 4 is structural. So the first man on the moon was Neil Armstrong. Whenever we use superlatives, which means like the best of 3 or the worst of 3, we have to use the, because it's a specific out of the 3, the top one or the bottom one or the best one or the biggest or the worst one or the smallest. So we need the when we're using superlatives and when we're defining which one we're talking about. Moving on again. So we have some interesting questions here because it can be confusing, so don't stress about it. It's all about practice. This is what I'm looking for. What about with names? Should we use the with names or not? So we do not use the with proper nouns, okay? So for example, you would say Susan, not the Susan. You would say Canada, not the Canada. Sports, you would just use the sport name. Even though you don't need to use a capital letter, you would just talk about volleyball or basketball or soccer or football. You do not need the with sports. The same goes for when we give a specific name to places. For example, if we talk about Mount Everest, that is one specific mountain. It has a name, a particular name. We don't need the. Buckingham Palace is the name of the palace in London. So again, because it's named using the family name, we don't need to define which palace. Incheon Airport, again, is a name. The airport is named, so we don't need to define which airport. And GNUE as well, because it's a short form, we don't need to use the, because you need to understand what GNUE is if you're going to use those letters. The we need to use with some places, however, if we want to define one out of a number of them. So for example, the USA, the United States of America. So what we want to define here is which United States. So we say the United States of America. Also, United Kingdoms. There are a variety of United Kingdoms. I can't name them, but there are. So what we want to define is which United Kingdom? The United Kingdom of England and Scotland. Which river are you talking about? The Han River. In this case, you could use the or not. Actually, both are available to be used. Which sea are you talking about? The Mediterranean Sea. Which river? The Amazon River. So we're looking at the answer to which one. So we're specifying. So the Sahara, what are we talking about? The Sahara Desert. If you're talking about directions as well, so the west of the world or the east of the world. The Eiffel Tower is because there are a number of towers. And so if we're defining which tower in particular, we're going to use the Eiffel Tower. Many types of museums. So which museum do you like? I like the Natural History Museum. And if we talk about our school and we use the full title, then we're defining a National University of Education. And there are a number of National Universities of Education in Korea. So which one are you talking about? The Gwangju National University of Education. So moving on now to slide 22. Again, I'm asking the question, should you use the or not? So we don't use the with common expressions. It's something that's used regularly. For example, go to school, go to university, we don't use the. There's no need. Go to bed, you don't need to say I go to the bed, there's no need. December 1st, sports, for example, again, not the volleyball, we just say volleyball. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, again, we don't need the, because they're common expressions, we all know what they define, they're specific by themselves. We do, however, need to use the with some expressions, for example, the radio, the cinema, the theater, the sky, the countryside, the rural area, the environment, which is around us, and the sea. So what I'd like you to do is take a look at page 23 and see if you can answer these questions. But what I'm looking for as well is that you answer the questions in full sentences. Okay, so pause the video here and try your best to answer the questions. Okay, I'm going to continue. So ideally, what I'm looking for here is to see if you used the or not. So number one, what is her name? I'm not sure if you recognized her or not, but her name is Adele. And remember that we do not need the with names. Do you know what the animal is? So this is a snake, okay, or a viper, because we have lots of snake types. We have lots of snakes. So we just say, yeah, just one. Number three, what sport are they playing? So they are playing volleyball. Okay, so that is volleyball. We do not need the with volleyball. Number four, you have two choices basically. So the name of that tower is either the Namsan Tower when you use the, or you don't have to put the because we know together culturally that it's Namsan Tower. Number five, where is the tower? The tower is in Seoul. So you would use capital letter S for Seoul, and we do not need the. Number six, do you know his stage name? If you're not sure, this is Eminem. So it should be capital E for Eminem, but we do not need the again. Number 7 will vary. So what time did you go to bed? I went to bed. No, the. I went to bed at what time? Number 8, when did you last go to the cinema? So I last went to the cinema maybe 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago. So the idea again is for us to begin using indefinite and definite articles so that we can show what we're talking about to people who are listening. So we're going to move on now to talk a little bit more about the specific article the. So the definite article, I'm looking now at slide 24, is to talk about general usage versus specific usage. So if it's general, we don't use the. If it's specific, we use the. For example, what do you think about these? So I've given you a few examples. The first one is, I like pop music. So is this a general idea, or are we talking about a specific music, to the specific song? What about in the second case? Turn down the music, it's too loud. What is the idea that we're presenting here? Number 3, I don't watch television very much. So is this general or specific? And number 4, remember to switch off the television when you go to bed. Is this general or specific? So essentially, I'm hoping that you're starting to pick up the pattern. If we don't see the, it's general. If we see the, it's specific. So if we say, I like pop music, it means, generally speaking, I like all kinds of pop music. Pop music is great. In the second case, we say, turn down the music, it's too loud. It means right now I can hear music playing. And that specific music playing, it's hurting my ears. It's much too loud. So maybe this is an example of you perhaps at home. Your sister's got the music on, or your brother's got the music on, or your mom or your dad, and it's too loud. So you say, turn the music down, that specific music. I don't watch television very much is general because there's no the. No the means general. So it means that generally speaking, I don't watch TV, any kind of TV. The fourth case, though, is remember to switch off the television. So the television means in that specific place, which means maybe you're at home with your mom wants to go to sleep early, and she says, remember to turn off the TV that we are watching right now before you go to bed. So this is the specific TV in your living room. So moving on. I want you to notice one more time that in the first sentence we use a. So for example here, I have a phone. In the next sentence you change it from a to the. So the phone is a Samsung S4. Example, Jisoo had a Samsung phone. And in the second case we use the, which refers back to the same phone, like in the cat example. The phone was a gift from her mother, which means that Jisoo had a Samsung phone, which was a gift from her mother. Now, I'd like to move on to the writing system introductions. So once again, I want to review how a paragraph is made and to make sure everyone is clear about that. So remember that the first 2 sentences introduce your topic and why you chose it. And then we give 2 sentences which are about your detail 1, whichever detail you choose to talk about. Then the next 2 sentences are about detail 2, and of course the next 2 sentences are about detail 3. And then of course we have our conclusion. So if you remember, the introduction and the conclusion have the same information, but they're given using different words or different sentence patterns. So once again, I'd like to make sure that this is very clear. So what I've chosen here is a picture of a hamburger. This is not to say that you have to eat hamburgers or like hamburgers. It's just an example. If you look at slide 27, you can see that the top bun is the topic, which would be your 2 sentences to describe what you're talking about and why. And the bottom bun is closing. Now, if you'll notice, they're both bread. They're both types of bread, but they're not identical. You can see the shape is a little bit different, and perhaps the length is different as well. So again, we've got our 2 sentences for detail 1. So you have your detail 1 and explanation, detail 2 and explanation, detail 3 and explanation. Now, the reason why I chose this picture is because the reason why when you're writing, you want to choose, wonderful words. The same that when you make food, you want to choose wonderful ingredients. So I'm trying to make the idea clear that the words you choose can make the reader think the writing is wonderful or not. So our ideas are that we want to make it interesting and fun and exciting. So choose words that match your feeling. So again, your closing is to restate what you're talking about and why, but remember to try to use a new sentence shape, move the sentence around, and you can use new vocabulary like synonyms, 同义哦. So I'm moving on now to slide 28. So this is an example for your week 5 assignment. So you have 2 sentences, and I want you to introduce whose bag you looked at. So you're going to look around your house, or you can talk to a friend, you can call them on the phone to find out, anyone you want. And what I'd like you to do is tell me about who it was whose bag you looked at, and the items that were in their bag. And then I'd like you to introduce 2 sentences, or sorry, 1 item. I'd like you to tell me 2 sentences about that item. And remember, in the first sentence, you say, my friend had a candle. The candle was purple. Okay, you can choose whatever you'd like. But remember, the first sentence should be a. The second sentence should use the. The same for the detail number 2. So whatever you choose for detail number 2. My friend, I'm not sure who you're going to find out, interview. My friend had a purple hair elastic. A purple hair elastic. The purple hair elastic was a gift from her mom. Or my friend bought the purple hair elastic at Daiso. You can give any information that you want. The third item you're going to choose, you're going to talk about whatever your item is, a pair of sunglasses, and then in the second sentence we're going to describe something about the sunglasses. And again, of course, to conclude, your finishing statement is to go back to the beginning and restate once more whose items you were looking at, and why did you choose that person's items. So I've given you an example here. Please remember that we're still following writing basics, so you still need your title of 5 words or less, which should be centered at the top, and it should be about your topic and your feelings about it. So if I say an amazing bag, you can see I'm using my article, okay? And I'm also talking about an amazing bag, which means it's a positive for me. I like that. I've written, today I'm Hunmin Lee, so I've written my name in English style with capital letters.